Welcome to the American Indian and Alaska Native Behavioral Health webinar series. I'm Kate Trams, and today we have invited Ed Parcells to present on equine therapy. This training series is brought to you by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center. We are one of 4 national focus centers serving the ATTC network. The network also includes 10 regional centers and a network coordinating office. To learn more about the network, please visit our website. The next session in this series is scheduled for Wednesday, April 1st, when we will welcome Dr. Andrew Finch, who studies youth addiction and recovery schools at Vanderbilt University. He will be presenting on recovery schools and their impact on addicted youth. We offer the Essential Substance Abuse Skills webinar series each month as well. The next session on this series will be held on March 18, when Dr. Ken Winters will present The Science of Addiction, the Brain on Adolescence. For more information on our series, you can contact me at the email address or phone number provided on this slide. Our center is a NADAC certified educational provider, and we'd be happy to provide you with CEHs for a $15 fee. The CEH request form is available for download in the Files pod in the webinar screen. I will also be sending this form in a follow-up email to all who attended. Immediately following today's webinar, you will be redirected to our GIPR evaluation. GIPR stands for the Government Performance and Results Act, and SAMHSA asks us to evaluate our events in order to comply with this act and provide improved performance assessment and accountability. This survey asks about your satisfaction with the event and will take less than 10 minutes to complete. We thank you in advance for helping us to improve our programs. Before we start today's session, I'd like to go over a few instructions for the Adobe Connect system. To view the presentation in full screen mode, click on the full screen button at the top right corner of the presentation pod, which looks like 4 arrows pointing outward. To return to the regular view, click the button again. You'll be muted for the duration of this webinar. Please use the Q&A pod to share your questions and comments, and we will address questions at appropriate points during the presentation. We would also like you to be aware that this webinar records participant attention time. If you minimize the webinar or are working in another window, the system will record your participation as inactive, which may be reflected in the number of CEHs received. The opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the official position of CSAT, SAMHSA, or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Today's webinar is presented by Ed Parcells. Ed is the director of Lakota Care in White River, South Dakota, and is a certified substance abuse counselor. He has provided clinical supervision within the Rosebud Sioux tribal substance abuse programs and has co-authored the South Dakota statewide Native American Substance Abuse Needs Assessment and administered an Indian Health Services grant that developed a substance abuse screening instrument for pregnant women. He is the current South Dakota Native American Curriculum Committee Chair and is also a master trainer of the curriculum. Ed has developed, implemented, and administrated a Lakota Values equine-assisted counseling model and is here today to share with us about this program and his work incorporating traditional values in equine therapy into treatment for Native American adolescents. I want to thank Ed so much for joining us today, and I'm going to pull up his slides a moment. And yeah, we're thrilled to have you, Ed, and I want to pass things over to you this time. And yeah, thank you again for being a part of our webinar series.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ed Parcells, and we've been having fun with horses, and we started out in an adolescent treatment program. I'll be sharing more about that. But some people ask if we still live in teepees out here, and as you can see, it's true. Actually, the word teepee means house, so yes, we still live in houses. They've changed over the years, but our program is called the Shunka Wakan Assisted Therapy, affectionately referred to as SWAT. And I'm currently the director of Lakota Care, and I have two huge contracts. One of them's with the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, so I'm working there 3 days a week, and then I have a contract with the Rosebud Sioux tribe, so I'm working there 2 days a week. and also operating a private practice. This is Lakota Care. When Access to Recovery came out, had the opportunity to fulfill one of my dreams, and that's to build a faith-based treatment program, outpatient treatment program, integrating traditional Lakota culture and ways with Christianity. So that's what we did with Lakota Care. I got a start with Piamani Otipi back in 2001, and then came on board with a part-time contract in 2002 with the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. The Rosebud Sioux Tribe had a grant for $500,000 to create something for adolescents. So they had a treatment program and a grant, and the director of the RST alcohol program asked me if I'd come and serve as a director, but I was busy down in Arizona and declined, and she called me back a couple months later and said, we really need you to come back and help us with this grant to get an adolescent treatment program going. And at that time I had a federal career, so I said no thank you. She called me back again, and each time I'd ask her, how much does it pay, and she'd tell me. And then the last time she called me, I asked how much it paid, and she told me, and I declined again. And then she said, Ed, she said, you have two problems. One, she said, you think you're worth what you're getting. And then she said, you forgot where you came from. So between that left hook and right cross, I had to go do some praying about that. Make a real long story short, I wound up going back to the Rosebud Sioux Tribe and directed Piamani Otipi. What we've done now with the contract with the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, I left the full-time director position in 2010, and that's when we launched Lakota Care, outpatient treatment program. And the director of Rosebud Sioux Tribe alcohol program, Piamani Otipi, is under her umbrella, one of her programs. She asked me to come back under contract. So last year I signed a contract with her, and that's why we're there 2 days a week. But last year it was full-time. But I currently have a contract for 2 days a week with Piamani Otipi. So on Fridays I do equine assisted therapy, a Shunkawakan assisted therapy program with residents of the adult inpatient treatment program at Rosebud, and it's also available to adolescents as needed. So we've integrated the two. It's basically a substance abuse service. We do intervention, assessment, referral, outpatient treatment, continuing care, relapse prevention, and spiritual support groups. We strongly endorse 12-step, and we also have other types of support groups, Bible studies, and for the Christian-oriented, and talking circles for the traditional-oriented. My counseling theory of choice is rational emotive behavioral, and I was trained in IGALA, and they primarily use experiential therapy, so I've blended the two. And then it was probably in 2006, 2007, I met, I've been working with ATTC for many years, back in the 90s actually, and early 2000 on a couple of other projects, but Candace Peters was a coordinator for training, and she came and looked at our PMO program, and she said, you know you're doing motivational interviewing, right? And I said, well, I'm loosely familiar with motivational interviewing, but no, I wasn't aware of it. And then she did the parallel between how we interacted with clients and what I was calling an inside-out approach is kind of the essence of motivational interviewing. So with that, she helped train me initially, and then I met Brian Cerna with Cerna Solutions on a joint project where we took motivational interviewing and integrated traditional Lakota thought, philosophy, and culture into motivational interviewing. We did a joint presentation in Sisseton, and watching him train, then I really got excited about motivational interviewing. I had a familiarity with it, but motivational interviewing is much deeper than it is wide, and the more I understand it, the more I see the power in it. And then we also had the EGALA, Equine Assisted Psychotherapy back then, and we have that at PMO also. So we integrated the rational emotive behavioral therapy, experiential therapy, and our style of interacting is pure motivational interviewing. And the inside-out approach, we place a strong emphasis on values. We actually, in our adolescent treatment program, when I first came on with Pialmani Otipi, when I walked into the dorm, I saw a list of rules that went from the ceiling all the way to the floor that would have put the 10 Commandments to shame. And I thought, wow, when you first walk in, this is what you're faced with, is a bunch of don't do this, don't do that. And right away it kind of struck me as needing to be modified. So we did away with all rules at PMO, no rules whatsoever. And we went to a spiritual-based program where we promoted Lakota values, and then what we did was had the youth write their own rules. So we taught them the values, then they weighed Lakota values against their own value system, and then they wrote their own rules. And that was the inside-out approach. Some of them got it quicker than others, but they all got it. And then we also have primary prevention, client education. Togala Inagio is started out as a part of PMO way back. They had a prevention component to it, and then that turned into a mentoring program. And the latest version of that is mentoring with an emphasis on suicide prevention. These are our co-therapists. These are the actual horses that we use out at PMO. The one front and center, acutely in tune with something strange going on, that's the photographer. His name is Frosty. If you look at the other horse's ears, you can see that they're pointed and have a nice curve to them. But if you look at Frosty's ears, you'll see that he has bear cub ears. And the vet said that he was either born in a blizzard or experienced sub-zero temperatures at a very, very early age. Horses' ears typically don't freeze off, but his ears are froze off. So he got named Frosty, and it kind of matched his personality too. He's the head horse of the herd. He's the alpha. This is Frosty and I. Frosty taught me more about working with adolescents than anything I've ever learned in a book. These were all donated horses, and that's a good thing if you want to start working with horses and don't have resources to purchase them. But the downside is the quality of horses that people tend to donate. After about 40, I said, we no longer need horses. They were all donated. And in Frosty's case, he was raised as bucking stock, so he was a rodeo bareback bucking horse. That was his first job, but he also had some serious behavioral problems. He tended to break halters, and he resisted being tied up or restrained in any way. And he was also the alpha horse, so when any new horse gets introduced, Frosty establishes his dominance, which is a pretty, we would take the kids out there to watch that. Frosty would establish his dominance with the new horse, and none of the other horses have ever, there have been some close calls, but Frosty always wins out. When you introduce a new horse, they establish themselves, their pecking order amongst themselves, and Frosty has been the dominant horse since the day we got him. But he was very, very resistant, and if you come anywhere near him with a halter, he would bolt the other way. He knew what they were. There was no way to work with him. Well, one of the first things that we do is we halter break the horses. So, and I knew I needed to get Frosty, being the alpha, that the rest of the horses would be a lot easier to work with. So he came donated from the tribe. He was one of the first horses. I think we had four horses that were donated by the tribe. Frosty was one of them. And then I got the history on him from the original owners, the story on Frosty, how he wound up in the tribe's herd. He was rejected as bucking stock, and he was too mean and ornery. So after it took 3 months, but to make a very, very long story short, if I hold a halter up in front of Frosty, he'll walk over to me and put his nose through the halter and basically halter himself. It's a remarkable transition, but the principle that I learned in working with horses is that you build an environment for success, and then you reward anything. You recognize and reward any try, any movement forward, you reward. So that was the operating principle. So in a round pen, I would walk in with a halter, and as soon as Frosty seen the halter, his anxiety went up, and he would prance around and put his rear end toward me and occasionally look at me, but wouldn't have anything to do with me. But he would sometimes, if I could get his attention, he would look at me. When he did that, I would drop the halter and walk away. That was the end of the session that day. And I'd go into the barn and I'd watch him, and initially he'd ignore the halter, but that's what I did every day. I'd walk in. When he looked at me, I would drop the halter and walk away. That was releasing pressure. That was rewarding his effort toward what I wanted him to do. Eventually, he started walking up to the halter and sniffing it, and that was huge. So then the next month was, if I could get him to take a couple steps toward me with the halter in my hand, I would drop it and leave, and that was his reward. And eventually, he got used to the halter, and through that process, he wound up being halter broke. And then I continued to reward him by feeding him, hand feeding him through the halter. And he learned eventually that that halter isn't so mean and nasty and painful at all. But the principle was create an environment for success and then reward the try. And I can still remember the day that the Creator spoke to me about that lesson and how we were treating our youth. So Frosty kind of gave me a lesson on how we needed to interact with our youth. So create an environment for success. Put the emphasis on rewarding the try. We don't ignore bad behavior, and there are consequences, but we put an emphasis on rewarding success. So that's what we built into Piamani Otipi in the beginning. And that's what Candace Peters recognized. She said, hey, you're doing motivational interviewing. So that was a powerful lesson. Also with motivational, we call it a motivational interviewing enhanced model. We use the rational emotive behavioral therapy. I think the neuroscience world is teaching us that whenever we perceive something, the first response is a subconscious, preconscious emotion. So something deep in our brain, anything that's perceived, it could be a voice, a sight, a feel, anything that comes through our senses, our memory banks are instantaneously notified, and the first thing that we experience is a chemical reaction in the brain that produces an emotional response. And that's before we even have any conscious thought. And then the next thing we experience after the emotion is the conscious thinking about what the stimulus was. So I've seen the benefit of, back in the day it was rational emotive therapy, and now they've integrated cognitive behavioral, which is beneficial. But that emotional response will trigger something, and then our intellect kicks in and will either reinforce the emotion, that's the natural, impulsive, instinctive mechanisms in the brain. So we literally feel before we think, and then we have thoughts. This really fits the world of substance abuse, especially with a mood-altering substance. Think about that. You have a substance that creates euphoria. So anything associated with that substance is going to trigger a feeling of euphoria, or potentially. And then also there could be faulty beliefs. If I said the word dog, that would elicit an emotional response. And for some people, it would be a warm and fuzzy response. If you put it on a continuum, for other people, it would strike fear into their hearts. So then comes the conscious thought processes around that emotion. And with rational emotive behavior therapy, we help the clients to explore what is that emotional response and what are the thoughts and beliefs that reinforce it. And sometimes those thoughts and beliefs need to be challenged, and we can't do it, but we can help the client to see the need. And using motivational interviewing as a technique or a method or a means or a way of being with the client is really, really helpful. We also borrowed the Prochaska di Clementi stages of change, and we integrated that into the culture, and then we have these five stages, which we actually put into their levels in our program. So the first level that the client works through is Iktomi, which coincides with pre-contemplation, and then the emotional thoughts and behavior, self-defeating thoughts and beliefs are challenged. So this could be denial or other unhealthy ways of thinking. And then the next one, the Iktomi is a spider in Lakota, symbolizes the trickster, deceit, deception, all that stuff that goes with denial. And then the next one is the Mato, which is in Lakota is a bear. And an elder helped us formulate this. It was an elderly grandmother. She said these clients, once they get through denial, they have this awakening, and they can be pretty, especially shortly after detox and beginning to engage the process of recovery, they get pretty moody, kind of grouchy, like a bear coming out of hibernation. And then the other thing is they're hungry. They're wanting information and knowledge and teaching. So once they get through the denial, then the next stage is the Mato, symbolized by the bear, like coming out of hibernation. Awakening, self-awareness, and also a shift in expectations, or we start establishing hope in a new way that will motivate them. And again, all this is not externally dumped on them, but using motivational interviewing, they discover this, and we help them, give them permission to take this journey. The next one is a taksha, which is a deer. So if you have encountered or know anything about deer, picture a white-tailed deer. They're hyper-vigilant, they're kind of jumpy, and for us that symbolizes focus and engagement. They're ready for fight or flight, so resolution time to issues, and we help them to experiment with new ways of thinking, new ways of acting, new ways of believing, and that can help facilitate a shift. The next one is the Tatanka, which is the buffalo. And that one, the action stage, symbolizing the buffalo is a symbol of strength. And we know that one of the behavior of the buffalo, if there's a blizzard, a harsh winter storm, the buffalo will face the wind. It's kind of a unique behavior of a buffalo. They face the storm. So that's what that represents. And also strength and practice. And then the last phase, the last stage, the last level is the Wambli. Wambli is the eagle, and the eagle represents divinity. So that's the maintenance stage. Once they have a grasp on their own spirituality, and we teach that true recovery, the foundation for true recovery is spirituality, and we weave that throughout the entire encounter through Iktomi, Mato, Taksha, Tatanka, and Wambli. Example, in Iktomi, we help them to see what their value system is and how has that contributed to their demise or been hurtful, and then we move them into the Wombly, where now the values have changed. And then experiential therapy, moving from the unconscious to the conscious. Behavior patterns are identified in interacting with the horses. Family of origin issues. And then in our area, most clients either have no spiritual orientation, no spiritual teaching or foundation whatsoever, or it's Lakota, which is Lakota culture, or Christianity. They'll have an orientation to either one. And like with motivational interviewing, if they claim to be Lakota, Lakota culture and spirituality forbids the use of any intoxicant. So we get to perform the task of creating dissonance. So if they're claiming to be Lakota, what's wrong with this picture? And then the same with Christianity. Alcohol abuse is not endorsed. If they don't have any value system in our program, they're going to be oriented to both. Take your pick, but they will subscribe to a set of values, and we help them with it. They get it. Most of them will embrace one or the other. This is just an example of Lakota. Lakota people are horse people. So there were different societies interacting with horses back in the day. BC, I refer to that as before Columbus. Our Lakota had societies interacting with the horse. So this is an example of the Appaloosa, referred to as the blue hair horse, and the nation would be the society. So there's a society of people that had this belief or thoughts about the Appaloosa horse. The spirit world, the spirit nation. The creator is the source of spirit. And the Appaloosa horse, the spots on his rump symbolize the star constellation. And the star world, the stars symbolize the spirit world. So there was actually a society that had this belief, and this is just an example of one of the societies. There were many societies around the horses, but this is one that just wanted to share that with you. In our model, the Lakota put a high value on the number 7, and there are seven directions that are taught through oral tradition in the belief of the Lakota. So I asked the elders, I said, who invented the 7 directions? And they said, well, it was the elders know there are 7 directions. It's observed in creation. So that's where they got that, plus interaction with the Creator confirmed truth. So this intuitive quality of seeking direction from the Creator, or anything that's a mystery, is attributed to the Creator, which activates faith, and then faith was confirmed. So the number 7 is very important in Lakota belief. So they have 7 directions, and each one of these has tremendous significance. In our model that we developed, we asked spiritual leaders to critique our model, and it was endorsed by several traditional spiritual leaders, and they even helped us. I'm not fluent Lakota. I understand the language and I can speak some, but some of our fluent elders that were steeped in traditional Lakota culture helped us with the language and also interpreting these. So those are the 7 directions, and I find it interesting that in the Bible, the number 7 has significance, and also in the Old Testament, there's reference to 7 directions, and there's a lot of parallels in what we teach, that all truth is God's truth, and we recognize the similarities between the two and celebrate that. There are things that are contrary, and we just stay away from that. That's not helpful or beneficial, so we find the common ground between the two, and we promote that. So the first one is the east, and then everything moves, well, the sun rises in the east, and then the sun moves southerly toward the west in our hemisphere, and that also reinforces that everything in Lakota moves clockwise. So from the east we go south, and then to the west, then to the north. So those are the 4 cardinal directions. And then we also have the apex above the star world, or below the earth, and then above the star world. And then the 7th direction is a very sacred concept in Lakota. Some of the like a medicine man, or a holy man is a loose translation, but these are the in Lakota culture and spirituality, they have the greatest insight and wisdom. They tell us that 7th direction is where they get their insight, their power. Black Elk is a good example. He was quoted as saying, Black Elk was a traditional leader at the turn of the century, and he was a very powerful spiritual leader. And in a speech one time, he said that people say that I'm a powerful man. He said, I need to set the record straight. This is my paraphrase of his speech, by the way. He said, I need to set the record straight. He says, I have no power. He said, I'm just a man. He said, I'm just a common man. He said, anything happening in the way of supernatural healing or miracles or hyper supernatural activity that happens as a result of my prayer is the Creator. He said, it's not me. And he said, if I try to take credit for it, he says, it'll end. I thought that was just really profound. But that's just one of the concepts of the 7th direction, from within. Some people would call it intuition, or beyond that would be divine revelation or insight with a divine source. So that's the 7th direction. And then we have the values. I'll share more about that as we go. But this is the foundation of Lakota culture. So everything that we do is consistent and integrated within this cultural format. And then we have 7 life powers. So Lakota believe that we pre-existed before we came to this world. We originated in the spirit world. The Oyate Wakhan is what is referred to. That's the spirit world. That's where the Creator dwells. We pre-existed there, and then we transitioned here. And the main source of influence our spirit has on our brain is our conscience. So that's a power. I happen to believe that everybody has a conscience. Some people's conscience is of influence to their brain as bright and warm as the sun. In comparison, other people's conscience is as bright and warm as a match, but everybody has a conscience. And I also believe that some people's conscience is as bright and warm as a match that's been blown out, but everybody has a conscience. And that's what we kind of build on in our program. We help people to to seek that direction from within, their own conscience, not external, thou shalt not, but within. If we learn to listen to that, our inner being, there's some powerful things that could happen. The other thing, like I shared, was the heart, the seat of emotion. So we're spiritual beings. We have a spirit. Well, I take that back. We don't have a spirit. We are spirit, and our spirit has a body. And then we have emotions. So the main core emotions, mad, sad, glad, and fear. And then in intensity and variety and in combination, the last count, I think I've seen a list of over 200 emotions, and we're constantly feeling something. And then physical, our body, the material realm, and then our mind, the intellect, memory, executive functions of decision making, and being able to figure things out. Those are the four main life powers: our spirit, which is the essence of us, then our emotions, our body, and then our mind. And then we have three powers that are relational. The earth symbolizes our social relationships, and the above, the spirit world, symbolizes spirit relationships. And it's interesting as I study and seek to understand traditional Lakota. They have helper spirits and contrary spirits, and the function of each is parallel with Christianity's demons and angels, and they all have a purpose. And then the seventh direction is within, and that's where we get our self-worth, our wholeness or holiness, our purpose, and balance with self and all of the other directions, starting with harmony with the Creator through the seventh direction. So those are the seven life powers. And we get into the Shunka Wakan assisted therapy. I just love this picture. Almost like a mechanic. We got to open the hood here and see what's going wrong here. We're going to do a little diagnosis, and equine therapy is a horse and therapist partnership with an acute awareness that the Creator is going to do something and ultimately in charge of this session. So we're looking under the hood here, inspecting the values. There's a link at the end of this presentation in the PowerPoint. There's a link to two articles that were written. The first one I co-authored, and in there we have activities associated with each of the seven Lakota values. I won't go into that, but if you want to know more about the activities, I'll share a couple of them here just as examples, but it's in that publication, in that journal article. But the seven Lakota values that we teach and support, first one's gratitude. And the word Shunka Wakan, Shunka means dog, and Wakan, I shared with you earlier, it means anything that can't be materially explained, scientifically validated, anything of that quality is associated with the Creator. So that's Wakan. And Shunka is dog. So the teaching that I heard of how that name came about was before there were horses, the dog was the beast of burden. And I can just imagine some of us have speculated that perhaps some Lakota were out on a prairie, and maybe some pioneer frontiersman met his demise and lost his socialized, domesticated horse, and a Lakota came across it. This is just speculation on my part. We've had some discussions about this. And if the Lakota found this creature that they'd never seen before, and it's four-legged, and if you know anything about horses, they kind of have personalities, each one, almost like a dog. And they also have a quality of emotional and social bonding that's like a dog. If you know anything about horses, I was fascinated. I mean, you see a horse in the field and you think some wild animal, but when you socialize horses with people, they take on this emotional bonding quality where they'll get attached to you, and it's reciprocal. So here was a big creature that had four legs, and now it becomes the beast of burden for the Lakota. They don't know where it came from, but they're sure glad it's here. And then the more they have of them, the greater things are. So they attribute it as a gift from the Creator. It has the wakhan. They'd never seen a horse and couldn't explain it. So that's an intuitive quality of Lakota. Anything that we can't explain, we attribute to the Creator. That's God's business, is a term that we say. So that's where the origin of Shunka Wakan comes from, the personality and intellect and emotional qualities of a dog and a horse in a much grander scale. So we have an activity that we teach gratitude with. We'll put take the adolescents out, put them in we have a large corral, and then we use a round pen within that. Some activities we ask the clients to observe from afar, so they'll go to the outer edge of the corral within the and the round pens within, and then a client is going to interact with the horse. They go into the actual round pen, and we do activities that way. Some of the activities are in the corral, some of them are out in an open pasture. But this one that we teach gratitude, we put 3 horses in a round pen, and I like to get them all riled up and spook them so they're hyper, running in circles around there, rearing and jumping and kicking. And then we ask the client that's going to participate to go into the round pen, and their job is to not faint, not run away, and to stand in the middle and have happy thoughts, and to think about which of those horses they want. Which of those horses did they pick that they want? So they have to stand completely still. They can't do anything to coax the horse in, or all they have to do is stand still and watch. Well, there's a quality of horses where they're intuitive or inquisitive. So one of the horses is going to walk up to this person before it's over, usually within 10 minutes. One of the 3 horses is going to walk up to the client, going to smell them, and just to see what they've been eating. If they smell like horse meat, they're going to run. But if they smell like Wheaties, they're going to be attracted. And they're going to smell the individual. That's their first action. And then the second is they're going to test their texture. The horse is actually going to bump the individual with their nose. They will test the texture to see what you're made of, to see how you feel. Every horse will do it. And put 3 horses in there. One of them will do it before the other 2. And then we call that tagging. The horse tagged you. So that's the horse that picked you. But we take it beyond that. We say, no, the horse didn't really do it. The Creator assigned that horse to you. And their responsibility is to be grateful. 9 times out of 10, it isn't the horse that they picked. And we love that. And then we're going to go process this in group therapy. And all kinds of things are going to happen in group therapy around that. So that's just one of the activities. We have activities for each of those that teach a Lakota value. The goals: promote self-discovery, spiritual growth. We want them in tune with their value system. We don't impose that on them. We teach them Lakota values, and if they're Christian, then there's a set of values that get taught there too. We let the client decide which system they want to subscribe to. Some of them subscribe to both, and that's awesome. To improve emotional, mental, behavioral health, develop decision-making skills, goal setting, elevate self-worth, awareness of self-concept, self-worth, and then problem-solving skills and communication skills, assertiveness versus passive or aggressive. And no clients where confidentiality was violated in any of these pictures. These are actually relatives of mine, and I have permission to use them. How it works, horses will mirror behavior. They are acutely in tune with the emotional state of people. They're very, very perceptive. Their thing is survival. They're trying to perceive if you're a threat of harm or if you're something that could be beneficial. And how the client reacts with horses will reveal issues. The horse will actually sense thoughts and feelings. Now, just to give you an example, you're saying, what? But if you're scared to death of a horse, and I put you in the center with in a round pen with 3 horses, and you are scared to death, those horses are going to be afraid. They're going to pick up on your fear, and they're going to act skittish. They're thinking this person is emanating fear. What is there to be afraid of is what goes on in their mind, and they act fearful. If you're confident and at peace, those horses are relaxed, and they'll come up to you quicker. If you're filled with angry or hostility, it's going to take a while before one of those horses comes up to you. They eventually will, but it's going to take a while. And we had one girl said, I hate my horse. He's stupid. He's dumb. He's mean. And we were like, hello. But the horses will sense your thoughts and feelings, and then they will act or respond to that. And then we read what the horses are doing, and then we help facilitate the group to reinforce the observations that the therapist made, because they all seen them too, and then that comes in the form of feedback to the client. Horses serve as a mirror. Has that horse got his eyes closed? Does that kid have his eyes closed? Has that kid got a grin on his face? Don't tell me. These pictures, they did a newspaper article on us, and they did 100-some pictures, and they were out there interacting with our horses and these volunteers, which are my family. And when a newspaper article came out, they selected one picture of me behind my desk in my office. I couldn't believe it. I said, what did you do with all those pictures? They said, there's about 100 of them, and they're going to delete them. I said, give them to me. So they emailed them to me, and that's what these were. Benefits from equine therapy. It's fascinating. The experience lasts. I still have clients to this day who came through our adolescent program 10 years ago and asked how their horse is doing, or relayed an experience, not what happened anywhere in the program, but if it happened out in the pasture in the round pen, it sticks. The horses, you can't accuse them of being judgmental. What they see is what they get, and they're very honest with you. It provides immediate cause and effect that's observable, can be processed in group. Aids in retention. It's just fun working with horses. Even the youth that are scared to death of horses, by the time, especially our horses, are super, super socialized, and they're really, really, really good. So, and then this is an article about equine therapy. I'll let you read that. But I think we'll open it up for questions or discussion at this point.
Great, thank you so much, Ed. And as he said, we would love to have your questions, so please submit those in the Q&A pod, and we will address those. Barbara has already asked about having trouble accessing the second link at the end of the presentation, the one for the American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse. So let's see.
There, I'll put that up here. Can you see it now?
Okay.
Those are the links, and then this is also about the motivational interviewing. Candace Peters and Brian Cerna and I did the training at Sisseton. But this is the links. Did the participants not get this this slide?
No, they I think she might have tried to click on it because it says that you can click on it, and what it is actually, that link is going to open up a PDF file. So it may be that if you aren't able to open that, maybe you don't have. Oh, she said the link was broken. Let's see. Let me see if I will copy and paste it into the Q&A. So you should be able to access it from there. One moment. Okay.
The first article, the second half of that is all about our 7-direction equine model. The first one is about another program that Les Whitbeck was a part of creating and using in another project at the Omaha Reservation in Nebraska.
Great. All right. So it looks like we were able to share that. And yeah, please continue to submit questions. Ed, I had a question actually about, you talked so much about talking about traditional values, and I wonder how you handle situations where your clients may be, feeling like they're resistant to traditions and that kind of thing.
Okay, and a lot of them they haven't been taught. Many of our native clients have been oriented to this, so they have a familiarity with the 7 directions, the medicine wheel, the 4 directions, and some traditional values. Some of them, this is the first time they've ever heard of anything like this, and for those, we start very basic with asking them what their values are. What do they value? And then we show them, that maybe their value system is not beneficial. So everybody has values. So we show them that they actually have values, and that and then we'll teach them the Lakota values, what those mean and what they are, and then we promote that. Like the one where we had no rules, the Lakota value was respect. So we taught them that they were guests at our facility, and if they were going to demonstrate the Lakota value of respect, we had a structure of lights out at 10. And they would need to write their own rules about respecting our structure and adhering to our structure. They could either respect it or disrespect it, but it was up to them. If they respected it, there were rewards. If they disrespected it, there were consequences.
Great, thank you. We have a couple of questions here from Terry as well. She asks, what are some before and after effects of a kid who starts out afraid and then goes through equine therapy?
That we're afraid?
Yes.
When I think of afraid of horses, I've never seen anybody more afraid. We had like a 14-year-old girl. She was just kind of hyper, maybe ADD, real thin. And we have corner posts in our corral that are telephone poles, and they're about 7 foot high. And when we were out there in that corral and here one of the horses spooked and took off running, and they all took off running, this girl ran to that telephone pole. I've never seen anything like it in my life. She climbed up that telephone pole and was perched on top and sitting up there. That's how afraid she was. And when we asked her about it, she said she don't even remember climbing that pole. But she was deathly afraid of horses. But if you put a barrier between a client and a horse, and you put some oats in that client's hand and ask them to close their eyes, and of course the first few times they're not going to be successful feeding the horse, but when a horse eats oats out of your hand, there's just something about that. And then the client will open their eyes, and then they'll actually get addicted to the sensation of hand feeding horses. Now I know that if there's any horse people out there, that's bad manners, but we're not horse people. We do equine therapy, so we do hand feed our horses. Um, we usually bucket feed them, or we have another means, but hand feeding a horse is an experience that sticks with you, and that will something about that soft muzzle of a horse and the way they use their tongue to capture every grain out of your hand. It's a sensation, and it reduces fear.
Great. We have a few more questions, so hopefully we can take a little bit more time and go over a little bit, but we've got some great questions we can get to. Amy asks, she has two questions. You mentioned that the horses can sense a client's thoughts and feelings. What do you look for when you're screening a client for equine therapy? I'm thinking of clients who have a history of violence and aggression, for example. And then she also asks if you know where a therapist can receive equine therapy training.
Well, the first part of the question about screening the clients, I've never. Well, the only client that I'm not going to allow to be in with the horses is somebody that's so oppositional that they're going to put themselves at risk of harm or the other clients. That's the only criteria. Some of the clients are very aggressive. They have a history of assault and violent crimes. They're perfect candidates for equine therapy. But if they are so oppositional that they refuse to adhere to our guidelines about how to interact with the horses, we don't hit our horses. We're never abusive to the horses in any way. If they don't adhere to those, then they're out of there. But usually those hardcore gangster kids, they go out there and they think they're going to boss this horse around. They are going to have less success than that scared little girl that's afraid of horses. Those horses are going to love her. Once she gets over her fear, she'll be successful with them. That aggressive, mean, unresolved anger, horses sense that, and they're repelled by it. So, and that's observed. Why does like the one girl, I hate my horse, he's mean. Well, hello. And then that's used in therapy. Just that interaction in itself speaks volumes. And other clients in group therapy will make those observations. And the therapist just facilitates this. We really use the group process because everything that happened, everybody saw it, and we have the clients talking about it. So, of course, we ask for volunteers in the therapy session who wants to work on an issue, and then that's how we usually do it. But there's nowhere to hide, and defense mechanisms are out the window because what you see is what you get.
Great. We got a couple more.
There was a second part to that question was?
Yes, there was a second part. Do you know where a therapist could receive equine therapy training?
I'd Google equine therapy, and there are a variety. I don't think there are any bad ones. Some are better than others, but I was trained in Igala, and let that go, that credential go. We went way beyond what they're doing, and I think um, they didn't have a problem with us, but they couldn't appreciate what we were doing. So we just outgrew them. But Igala's good, and then there are many others. We're actually thinking of creating a credential, a certification. I serve as the chairperson for this Native American credentialing board for the 4-state area for substance abuse. We're thinking about creating an equine therapy credential. But
Great. Thank you. I think we'll just take time for one more. Another question from Terry. What is the most powerful reason to introduce kids to horses?
it works. It just pure works. Like the defense mechanisms, you sitting at the desk from a client, they've had tons of experience at repelling you, and most of them are more skilled at avoiding you and your agenda than you at addressing them. That whole game is gone. Equine therapy, it's just a non-issue. They're out there interacting with horses, and everybody's making observations and giving them feedback. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. The defense mechanisms, there are no defense mechanisms. When you get into the group counseling, they can surface, but those barriers are severely diminished with equine therapy. I can't imagine doing treatment now without equine therapy, with adolescents especially.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Ed, and I want to thank everyone for your questions and for joining us. And I'll just remind everyone we will be sending out a follow-up email that will come out tomorrow, and it will include the recording link to, we've been recording this webinar if you want to share it with others, and it will also include handouts of the slides. And if you missed the link as we're redirecting you to our GIPRA survey today, that will also be included in the email. So thank you again, Ed. And did you have any final thoughts you wanted to leave us with?
Well, just thank you all for sharing this time with me, and I hope you have an opportunity to experience this, or at least explore it further. It's an up-and-coming field, and it's exciting.
Great. Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks again for joining us, and hope you all have a great day.